The Senate will come to order. I ask everyone present to please rise and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In the absence of clergy, let us bow our heads in a moment of silent reflection or prayer for the New York Knicks. Reading of the journal.
In Senate, Tuesday, May 20th, 2025, the Senate met pursuant to adjournment. The journal of May 19th, 2025 is read and approved on motion the Senate adjourn.
Without objection, the journal stands approved as read. Presentation of petitions. Messages from the Assembly. The Secretary will read.
Senator Ryan moves to discharge from the Committee on Health Assembly Bill number 3404A, substituted for the identical Senate Bill 6223A, third reading, calendar 1091.
So ordered. Messages from the Governor. Reports of standing committees. Reports of select committees. Communications and reports from state offices. Motions and resolutions. Senator Gianaris.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. On behalf of Senator Ryan, on page 2001, I offer the following amendments to Calendar 188, Senate Print 641, and ask that said bill retain its place on the third reading calendar.
The amendments are received and the bill will retain its place in the third reading calendar. Senator Gianaris.
On behalf of Senator Stavisky, I wish to call up Senate Print 607, recalled from the Assembly, which is now at the desk.
Secretary will read.
Calendar number 899, Senate Print 607 by Senator Stavisky, enactment of the education law.
Move to reconsider the vote by which the bill was passed.
Call the roll on reconsideration.
Adabo, Gianaris, Kruger, Orts, Cousins, White, ayes 59.
The bill is restored to its place in the third reading calendar.
I offer the following amendments.
The amendments are received.
Acknowledge Senator Weber for an introduction.
Senator Weber for the purposes of introduction.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have some special guests here up in the gallery from my district in Rockland County. I want to recognize the Indian Heritage Group and the Rockland Indian Cultural Heritage and Arts Awareness Club, who, as I said, are with us in the gallery today as we look ahead to Indian Heritage Month this coming August. I would also like to extend a special welcome to Rockland County legislator, Dr. Annie Paul. Dr. Paul, how are you today? Who has joined us here today as well. Legislator Paul, who is of Indian descent, is not only a dedicated public servant and tireless advocate, but was also a nurse, longtime nurse at Nyack Hospital, where my mother had worked for a number of years as well. Dr. Paul personifies the goodness of Rockland Indian American community. Rockland is home to a very large and thriving Indian population, a community that I'm proud to represent and proud to get to know each and every day. And earlier today, along with Assemblyman Pat Carroll, we were able to tour the Capitol with my guests here today, and we had lunch as well, and we had some great conversations about some of the concerns and some of the issues, not only specific to the Indian community, but in Rockland County as well. So I want to thank Dr. Annie Paul and the groups for being here. I see my friend Noah George there as well. I see Jacob there, and all the other members of the ICSR. Welcome here today. Mr. President, please welcome them here to the gallery, and please extend to them all the courtesies of this House. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Weber. To our guests from the American Indian of Rockland, we welcome you to the Senate. We extend to you all of the privileges and courtesies of this House. Please remain standing and be recognized. Senator Gianaris.
Mr. President, please recognize Senator Palumbo for a motion.
Senator Palumbo.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of Senator Weber, on page 53, I offer the following amendments to calendar number 865, print number 6859, and I ask that the bill retain its place on the third reading calendar.
The amendments are received and the bill will retain its place in the third reading calendar. Senator Gianaris.
Mr. President, there's a report of the Finance Committee at the desk. Can we please take that up?
Secretary Reed.
Senator Kruger from the Committee on Finance reports the following nominations. As Commissioner of the Office for People with Developmental Disabilities, Willow Bayer. As members of the Justice Center Advisory Council, Lucina Clark, Deborah L. Murray, Kanika N. Jeffries. As member of the Board of Visitors of the Capital Region Developmental Disability Service Office, Luis K. Thomas Churchill. As trustee of the City University of New York, Lorraine Cortez Vasquez. As trustee of the Higher Education Services Corporation, Francis Talty. For promotion to Major General of the Air National Guard, Brigadier General Gary R. Charlton for promotion to Major General of the National Guard, Brigadier General Sean M. Flynn as a member, of the Board of Visitors of the New York State Home for Veterans and Their Dependents at Batavia, Marlene L. Roll, as member of the Board of Visitors of the New York State Home for Veterans and Their Dependents at Oxford, Laura A. Rowe.
Move to accept the report of the Finance Committee and ask that you recognize Senator Krueger.
All those in favor of accepting the report of the Finance Committee, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The report of the Finance Committee is accepted. Senator Krueger on the nominations.
Thank you, Mr. President. On the nominations, I would just like to point out we are confirming a list today that we just heard, and almost all of them are people that we actually don't pay, but they're willing to volunteer in these positions on behalf of the people of New York, and I'm greatly appreciative that we still have so many committed people in the state of New York who are willing to give of their time and their self to work to make sure our agencies and advisory councils and visiting programs work as best they can. Of course, we also have 2 military representatives who were promoted today to be Major General of Air National Guard and Major General of the National Guard. Those are actually recommended by the federal government and paid by the federal government, but we still need to confirm them, and we are always appreciative of the commitment that we get in coordination with our federal military agencies to ensure these positions are appropriately filled. But finally, I want to recognize the Commissioner of the Office of People with Developmental Disabilities, Willow Baer. She's up here with us today, perhaps with the entire agency. I'm not exactly sure. Raise your hand if you work with Willow. Yep, she's got the whole agency with her. I will mention quickly that I have never received so many letters of support for a candidate in any hired position in the state of New York. So apparently you have a very large fan club, which just means we are expecting an enormous amount from you. And based on your interview with Finance and the Developmental Disabilities Committee yesterday, I feel that all of us who were in the room at the time and listened to the back and forth feel very confident that you are ready, willing, and able to take on this enormous challenge as the official commissioner. I'm not going to go on because we have another, oh, where did she go? Well, hello. We have another senator who appropriately represents the committee you overlap with, and who I think also might be your personal senator, Senator Pat Fahey. So I'd now like to cede the rest of my time to Senator Pat Fahey. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Krueger. Senator Fahey on the nominations.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I rise today in strong support of Willow Baer's nomination. I rise as chair of the Disabilities Committee, and yes, as Senator Krueger just alluded to, I'm proud to call her a constituent as well. I just want to make note, not only has she received just tremendous support, it's important to note that this is the largest, she oversees the largest IDD system in the country. And she has, as an acting commissioner, she has led that agency with compassion, with lived experience, and with a very serious vision. Just to give a scope or a scale of this, there are 130,000 people that are served by OPWDD. 80,000 of those are served in state-supported settings, and it's very important that we continue to serve them. I should also note 100% of the OPWDD population relies on Medicaid. And at a time when we are seeing looming and very serious threats to the budget, and particularly the Medicaid budget, it is important that we have somebody at the helm of that agency who understands the needs, who understands the importance, and understands the individual rights as we face rather uncertain times. She's also brought lots of creativity, pragmatism, and recognizes the need to do more with possibly less in terms of integration while making sure that each individual is served with sincere compassion. We also face a very serious shortage with direct service professionals, or DSPs as we often refer to them, while needing to expand access to dental and preventative health care. There's so much more, but it is with filling this post, I think we are making a declaration of our values, and I think Ms. Baer brings the ability as well as the recognition of inclusion of all and service to all. And again, I am in strong support of her nomination. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Fahey. The question is on the nominations. Call the roll.
Addabbo, Giannaris Kruger, Ort, Swift, White.
Announce the results.
In relation to the nomination, those senators voted in the negative are Senators Borrello, Kinsey Fitzpatrick, Chan, Helming, Matera, Murray, O'Mara, Rhodes, Steck, Tedisco, Walzick, and White. That's 47 nays 12.
The nominees are confirmed. Congratulations. Senator Giannaris.
Mr. President, we're going to return to motions and resolutions. Please take up previously adopted Resolution 986. Read that resolution's title and recognize Senator Fahey from her traditional seat on that side of the chamber.
The Secretary will read.
Resolution 986 by Senator Fahey, memorializing Governor Kathy Hochul to proclaim May 2025 as Cystic Fibrosis Awareness Month in the state of New York.
Senator Fahey on the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm playing musical chairs. I rise today in strong support of this resolution for cystic fibrosis, and we do have representatives in the gallery, I think, to my left here. And I'm also rising in supporting this resolution on behalf of Senator Jake Ashby, who also has had constituents here today. This is May of 2025 is the Cystic Fibrosis Awareness Month. Cystic fibrosis is a genetic disease that causes persistent lung infections and limits the ability to breathe over time. 40,000 children and adults in the U.S. and over 1,600 New Yorkers deal with this, and I've known many families myself. Often it requires daily treatment regimens, but we are making progress here. And the life expectancy has changed dramatically, but of course we do need more. Early detection through infant blood screenings is essential, and the mission of the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation is to cure the disease and provide all with a long and healthy life. And again, we've made tremendous advancements. We're proud that New York is home to 21 world-class CF or cystic fibrosis treatment centers, which provide comprehensive care and specialized treatment. Again, I urge my colleagues to join me in recognizing the far-reaching impact of this, and I thank the foundation for helping to ensure that awareness turns into action on those that do suffer with this disease, and that we continue to make progress. And again, I thank Senator Ashby as well. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Fahey. To our guests, I welcome you on behalf of the Senate. We extend to you all of the privileges and courtesies of this House. Please rise and be recognized. The resolution was adopted on May 20th. Senator Serrano.
At the request of the sponsors, the resolutions are open for co-sponsorship.
Resolutions are open for co-sponsorship. Should you choose not to be a co-sponsor, please notify the desk. Senator Serrano.
Please take up the reading of the calendar.
Secretary will read.
Calendar number 185, Senate Print 1409 by Senator S. Ryan, an act to amend the Uniform Justice Court Act.
Read the last section.
Section 4, this act shall take effect on the 1st of January.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Giannaris Kruger, Ort, Sewell Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 185, voted in the negative are Senators Borrello, Kenzana Fitzpatrick, Chan, Gallivan, Griffo, Helming, Murray, O'Mara, Ort, Rhodes, Steck, Tedisco, Walzig, Weber, and White. Ayes 44, nays 15.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 241, Senate Print 566 by Senator Skoufis, an act to amend the executive law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Giannaris Kruger, Ort, Sewell Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 241, voted in the negative are Senators Ort, Rhodes, Walzig, and White. Ayes 55, nays 4.
Bill is passed.
Calendar number 259, Senate Print 1191 by Senator Addabbo, an act to amend the correction law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Giannaris Kruger, Ort, Sewell Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 259, voted in the negative are Senators Borrello, Kenzana Fitzpatrick, Chan, Gallivan, Griffo, Oberacker, O'Mara, Ort, Rhodes, Steck, Tedisco, Walzig, Weber, and White. Ayes 45, nays 14.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 282, Senate Print 114 by Senator Clear, an act to amend the banking law.
Lay it aside.
Calendar number 363, Senate Print 3909 by Senator Parker, an act to amend the criminal procedure law.
Read the last section.
Section 6 is actually take effect on the 1st of January.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Giannaris Kruger, Ort, Sewell Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 363, voted in the negative are Senators Ashby, Borrello, Kenzana Fitzpatrick, Chan, Gallivan, Griffo, Helming, Lanza, Matera, Murray, Oberacker, O'Mara, Ort, Palumbo, Rhodes, Robinson, Steck, Tedisco, Walzig, Weber, and White. Ayes 38, nays 21.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 364, Senate Print 4188A by Senator Comrie, an act to amend the penal law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Giannaris Kruger, Ort, Sewell Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 384, Senate Print 3974 by Senator Sepulveda, an act to amend the correction law.
Read the last section.
Section 9, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Giannaris Kruger, Ort, Sewell Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 384, vote in the negative are Senators Borrello, Kenzana Fitzpatrick, Chan, Gallivan, Griffo, Helming, Lanza, Matera, Murray, Oberacker, O'Mara, Ort, Palumbo, Rhodes, Robinson, Steck, Tedisco, Walzett, Weber, and White. Ayes 39, nays 20.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 525, Senate Print 643 by Senator Clear, enactment of the state finance law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this action will take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Giannaris Kruger, Ort, Sewell Cousins, White.
Senator Clear to explain her vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. The purpose of the Youth Justice Innovation Fund is to unlock the potential of Raise the Age, which passed 7 years ago. The Youth Justice Innovation Fund would direct $50 million to community-based organizations to provide a continuum of services from prevention, early intervention, to alternatives to detention, placement, and incarceration for youth ages 12 through 25. The Innovation Fund builds on successful statewide efforts like Project RISE, which has brought over $30 million to communities to combat gun violence through public health strategies, including credible messenger and violence interruption programs. Overall, youth crime has consistently gone down since the Raise the Age law was first implemented in 2018. Evidence from across the state clearly shows how the law has improved community safety and youth well-being. Despite this significant progress, New York State has failed to fully deliver on its promise to fund community-based services and programs that provide alternatives to incarceration and reentry programs for young people. From 2019 to 2023, only a third of the money appropriated for youth justice under Raise the Age has been spent. Ultimately, the Youth Justice Innovation Fund will supercharge our efforts under Raise the Age and direct money expressly into our communities for prevention, intervention, and enrichment. I proudly vote aye.
Senator Clear to be recorded in the affirmative. Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 525, voted in the negative are Senators Ashby, Borrello, Chan, Matera, Murray, Palumbo, Rhodes, Walzett, and White. Ayes 50, nays 9.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 593, Senate Print 4957 by Senator Bailey, enactment of the judiciary law.
Read the last section.
Section 4, this action took effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Giannaris Kruger, Ort, Sewell Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 593, voted in the negative are Senators Borrello, Kenzane Fitzpatrick, Chan, Gallivan, Griffo, Helming, Lanza, Murray, Oberacker, O'Mara, Ort, Palumbo, Rhodes, Rawson, Steck, Tedisco, Walzett, Weber, and White. Ayes 40, nays 19.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 613, Senate Print 2453 by Senator Giannaris, enactment of the criminal procedure law.
Read the last section.
Section 4, this action will take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Giannaris Kruger, Ort, Sewell Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 613, voted in the negative are Senators Ashby, Borrello, Kenzane Fitzpatrick, Chan, Gallivan, Griffo, Helming, Lanza, Matera, Murray, Oberacker, O'Mara, Ort, Palumbo, Rhodes, Rawson, Steck, Tedisco, Walzett, Weber, and White. Ayes 38, nays 21.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 723, Senate Print 7048 by Senator Webb, enactment of the public health law.
Read the last section.
Section 3, this action will take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Giannaris Kruger, Ort, Sewell Cousins, White.
Senator Webb to explain her vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise today in very strong support of this legislation that takes a necessary and urgent step towards protecting maternal and infant health in New York State. As we all know, perinatal care, which is care before, during, and shortly after birth, is a critical part of ensuring safe and healthy outcomes for both mothers and babies. Across New York, especially in underserved areas and in rural areas, we've seen a very troubling trend. Hospitals quietly eliminating or reducing perinatal services without community notice, transparency, or proper oversight. This bill would require any addition, decertification, or major change in the way perinatal services are delivered by a general hospital to be reviewed and approved under Article 28 of the Public Health Law. This means that more individuals and families will be aware of these essential services and more involved with the decision-making processes that impact their quality of care, and more accountability from our medical providers. Mr. President, as the chair of our Senate Committee on Women's Issues, and as someone who represents rural areas where access to care is already a major challenge, I know firsthand how devastating it can be when labor and delivery units shut down. Pregnant people are forced to travel farther and sometimes across multiple counties, increasing the risk of complications and negative outcomes. This legislation is not about red tape. It is about ensuring that decisions that impact maternal and infant lives are made thoughtfully, with full oversight and community input. Together, we can continue to strengthen maternal care, protect families, and ensure that no New Yorker is left without the care they need at one of the most vulnerable and important moments of their lives. I proudly vote aye and encourage my colleagues to do the same. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Webb to be recorded in the affirmative. Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 739, Senate Print 896 by Senator Martinez, an act to amend the executive law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this action take effect on the 90th day, shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Giannaris Kruger, Orts, Cousins-White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 765, Senate Print 187A by Senator Holman Siegel, an act to amend the environmental conservation law.
Lay it aside.
Calendar number 767, Senate Print 2292A by Senator Harkman, an act to amend the environmental conservation law.
Read the last section.
Section 6, this act shall take effect on the 180th day, it shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Giannaris Kruger, Orts, Cousins-White.
Senator Cantaneri Fitzpatrick to explain her vote.
The sponsor for this legislation. As the sponsor's memo states, in less than 3 months at the end of 2023, beginning of 2024, 12 dead whales washed ashore in New York and New Jersey. And the postmortems indicated that many of these deaths were caused by boat strikes. Earlier in 2023, there was a stretch where 3 dead whales washed ashore on the tri-state beaches in a 4-day period, including one on Long Beach in my community. This bill is a great first step to educate boaters about what goes on with whale strikes and how to prevent them, and we need to be diligent about other initiatives coming out of the state, such as the push to fast-track offshore wind projects, even those that are opposed by local communities, so that they do not have unintended consequences of disrupting these sensitive yet vital ecosystems. For that reason, I'm proud to co-sponsor this legislation, and I'm proud to vote aye. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Cantaneri Fitzpatrick to be recorded in the affirmative. Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 767, voted in the negative, Senator Walzett. Ayes 58, nays 1.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 884, Senate Print 1425 by Senator Liu, an act to amend the public health law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this action took effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Giannaris Kruger, Orts, Cousins-White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 884, voted in the negative are Senators Borrello, Chan, Gallivan, Griffo, Oberacker, O'Mara, Palumbo, Rollison, Steck, Walzett, and Weber. Ayes 48, nays 11.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 950, Senate Print 6641A by Senator Gurnardez, an act to amend the general municipal law.
Read the last section.
Section 3, this act shall take effect July 1st, 2025.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Giannaris Kruger, Orts, Cousins-White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 978, Senate Print 2122A by Senator Fahey, enactment of Real Property Action and Proceedings Law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this action will take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Janoris Kruger, Ort, Sewell Cousins, White.
Senator Fahey to explain her vote.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. I rise today to note this legislation which expands the legal window for action against zombie properties to include a period after the foreclosure judgment, which would allow localities to address this loophole that now leads to more neglect of properties. For years, they go without accountability, and it can often lead to more years than for a foreclosure sale. The Department of Financial Services, or DFS, has not prosecuted zombie property cases in recent years due to these current legal constraints. This bill will empower the department to re-engage with those properties, to take an active role in enforcement along with municipalities. Here in Albany and many municipalities across the state, we have a burden of enforcing these zombie property laws, and this will provide much needed support to local governments. Right here in the city of Albany, we have over 1,000 zombie properties. It can lead to quite a corrosive effect in neighborhoods and communities, as well as a whole host of safety standards. And the red X's seem to just mark the vandalism and blight. So in short, this legislation will help communities across the state address this blight with vacant properties by introducing new housing stock to vigorously address our current housing crisis. And with that, I thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Fahey to be recorded in the affirmative. Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 978, voting in the negative are Senators Chan and Oberacker, ayes 57, nays 2.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 988, Senate Print 3036 by Senator Holman Siegel, enacted to amend the Civil Practice Law and Rules.
Lay it aside.
Calendar number 1006, Senate Print 7117 by Senator Salazar, an act to amend the executive law.
Read the last section.
Section 3, this act shall take effect on the 60th day, it shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Janoris Kruger, Ort, Sewell Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 1006, voting in the negative are Senators Ashby, Borrello, Canzani Fitzpatrick, Chan, Gallivan, Griffo, Helming, Lanza, Martinez, Matera, Murray, Oberacker, O'Mara, Ort, Palumbo, Rhodes, Rawson, Steck, Tedisco, Walzett, Weber, and White. Ayes 37, nays 22.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 1010, Senate Print 6576 by Senator Henchy, enactment of the State Finance Law.
Read the last section.
Section 3, this act shall take effect 1 year after it shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Janoris Kruger, Ort, Sewell Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 1086, Senate Print 2261 by Senator Cooney, enactment of the Vehicle and Traffic Law.
Read the last section.
Section 3, this act shall take effect on the 180th day, it shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Janoris Kruger, Ort, Sewell Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 1091, Assembly number 3404A by Assembly Member Levine, enactment of the Public Health Law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Janoris Kruger, Ort, Sewell Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
The bill is passed. Senator Serrano, that completes the reading of the non-controversial calendar.
We please go to the reading of the controversial calendar.
The Secretary will ring the bell. Secretary will read.
Calendar number 282, Senate Print 114 by Senator Clear, enactment of the Banking Law.
Senator Borrello, why do you rise?
Mr. President, would the sponsor yield for a question?
Senator Clear, do you yield? The sponsor yields.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. President, thank you, Senator Clear, for once again engaging on this bill. I want to start off, since it's been a while, we'll go back a bit. Can we confirm, please, yes or no, does New York State allow private contractors to operate prisons?
Say that again, I didn't hear you.
Can, I'm sorry.
Through
can-
you, Mr. President.
Senator Borrello, by all means, please clarify.
Yeah, thank you. Does New York State allow private contractors to operate prisons?
No,
Okay. Through you, Mr. President, will sponsor continue to yield?
Will the sponsor yield?
yes.
Sponsor yield.
So with that being said, we're talking about a bill that will impact only New York State chartered banks, which is a shrinking population since most banks in New York State are federally chartered. So we're telling New York State banks that they cannot invest in contractors who operate prisons outside of New York State. Is that correct?
Wherever they are, no private prisons.
Okay. Mr. President, sponsor continue to
Will
yield.
the sponsor yield?
Through you, Mr. President, I do.
The sponsor yields.
So isn't this bill then, in effect, punishing New York State chartered banks, who again are a continually shrinking population of banks?
The purpose of the bill is to make sure that we are not investing in private prisons.
Mr. President, sponsor continue to yield.
Will the sponsor yield?
Through you, Mr.
The sponsor
President,
yields.
yes.
So I think this is a slippery slope that we're telling banks what they can and cannot invest in, particularly because, as I said, state charter banks are community banks, the banks that often make local decisions on loans, things that are important. So it's important for them to have the freedom to invest. Otherwise, they can just become a federally chartered bank. But with that being said, weren't you successful in getting non-state chartered banks, federally chartered banks, to disinvest in private prisons?
I have participated in activism and advocacy that I feel brought that on, yes.
Yes. Mr. President, sponsor continue to
Will the
yield.
sponsor yield?
Through you, Mr. President, I do.
The sponsor yields.
So I applaud you for that. I may disagree with it, but I applaud you for your advocacy. Wouldn't it be more effective to continue that than to just target and kind of unfairly punish state chartered banks?
Like I said, the purpose of this bill is to make sure that it doesn't happen. Advocacy is always good, activism, but this is another tool.
Mr. President, could the sponsor continue to yield?
Will the sponsor yield?
Through you, Mr. President,
The
yes.
sponsor yields.
Shouldn't these state chartered banks, again, community banks, shouldn't they be able to decide for themselves who they want to do business with?
I don't think this bill tells them not to do business, and I think they've been able to do business with whomever they wanted to up until now. But I think it's very important that we do not invest in private prisons.
Mr. President, sponsor continue to yield.
Will the sponsor yield?
I do.
Sponsor yields.
But you said that we're not telling them what to do, but we are actually. Aren't we telling them that they cannot invest in a company that's business is to run private prisons, obviously in states outside of New York?
New York State has already said that we should not have private prisons. So it is only logical that we should say to our chartered banks not to invest in private prisons.
Mr. President, sponsor continue to yield.
Will the sponsor yield?
Through you, Mr. President, yes.
The sponsor yields.
So, from what I've seen, contractor-operated prisons in other states actually have lower rates of recidivism. They typically are newer facilities that have invested more heavily in the facilities. You know, we have aging infrastructure here. I can tell you that, prisons and jails in New York State certainly look like something, from a century ago, if not more. With that track record, I'm not sure why we wouldn't want a private contractor. It appears that they're at least having the ability to provide better results and better facilities for inmates.
I have experienced through my own constituents, unfortunately, who have served time in private prisons outside of New York State, and I've not found it to be the case that they are run more efficiently. In fact, there are complaints and actually proof of cells that do not lock. The worker turnover rate is 43%. There's less training for those officers. There are more incidents of inmate violence as well as inmate on staff violence, and vice versa. So I don't share that. Through you, Mr. President.
Mr. President, on the bill.
Senator Borrello on the bill.
Thank you, Senator Clear. We can have a philosophical difference. You know, I think I've been debating this bill since my first year in the New York State Senate, so this is probably my 6th time debating this bill. But this year's a little different for me. In the past, as I've said, I think advocacy works. It's worked effectively. Senator Clear's done a good job with that, as others have. In the past, I've said, and it still stands true in my opinion, that we're setting a dangerous precedent by telling banks what they can or cannot invest in. But this year, in light of the prison crisis here in New York State, we are the last state to be telling any other state how they should be running their prisons. Are you kidding me? Inmate-on-inmate violence is up dramatically. Inmate-on-staff violence is up dramatically. Morale is down. I mean, I can't think of another state at the moment, unless we go to some third world banana republic, that has done a worse job of running their prisons than New York State has. So this year, my message is, who the hell are we to tell anybody else how to run their prisons? I'll be voting no. Thank you.
Are there any other senators wishing to be heard? Seeing and hearing none, debate is closed. Secretary, ring the bell. Read the last section.
Section 2, this action will take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Dabo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Sewell Cousins White.
Senator Clear to explain her vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. While this bill has come to the floor on many occasions, today is probably more important than any other time in recent history. That is because on the federal level, under the current administration, the use of private prisons for incarceration and detention is on the rise. In January, an executive order rescinded the Biden directive that required the Justice Department not to renew contracts with private prison firms. Increased ICE activity virtually guarantees the for-profit companies who operate private prisons a pipeline of revenue. However, in New York, we're taking the opposite course. This bill sets a very clear moral and policy principle which follows upon the fact that we already prohibit the operation of private prisons in New York State per Section 121 of the Correction Law. Senate Bill 114 extends this principle further by prohibiting any state-chartered banking institution from providing financing or investing in the stocks, securities, or other obligations of an entity that owns or operates a private correctional facility. New York has been wise enough to ban the very existence of private prisons in the state, and thus it is completely logical to prohibit banks chartered by the very same state from investing in an activity that we have declared is not only prohibited, but morally unpalatable. As we stand here today, over 115,000 people in this country are in private prisons, and the number being detained by ICE only adds to this alarming figure. In my public service career, I have helped numerous constituents who had family members in private prisons, and the experience was horrendous. It is often impossible to make contact with your family member or loved one, set up visits, or perform any kind of wellness check. There's no accountability, no care or compassion. Safety, health, labor, and other standards are lax. Given the fact that private prisons are a moral, ethical, and policy scourge filled with non-existent safety standards for incarcerated individuals and employees, initiatives to keep people incarcerated longer, and long histories of corruption, this bill makes complete sense. New York banks should not be allowed to profit from institutions that the state itself deems impermissible to even exist. Plain and simple, I proudly vote aye.
Senator Clear to be recorded in the affirmative. Senator Kruger to explain her vote.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. So I was listening to the debate and doing a little research on my smartphone. Thank goodness for these things. And it turns out the federal government absolutely has the right to tell chartered banks at the state and federal level what they can and cannot invest in. So it is not unprecedented for New York State to decide that certain kinds of business activity are not approvable at the state level. And in fact, what disturbed me perhaps was that how many conservative states have done equivalent laws saying that you can't invest in companies that refuse to do firearms and private prisons and other, so the opposite side of this argument. So it may be a little new for New York State to pass a bill like this, saying there are certain activities we recognize as not being in the best interests of people, and there's more than enough research showing very disturbing outcomes at many private prisons throughout this country, which is why I'm very proud New York State doesn't let them in our state. But it's not unprecedented, and apparently it's not even unusual for banks to be regulated by some level of government as to the kinds of investments they can and cannot make. And so I'm very glad you brought the bill to the floor, made me educate myself, and I'm very happy to vote for this bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Krueger, to be recorded in the affirmative, announce the results.
In relation to Calendar 282, voted in the negative are Senators Ashby, Borrello, Kinsale Fitzpatrick, Chan, Gallivan, Griffo, Helming, Lanza, Matera, Murray, Obracker, O'Mara, Ort, Palumbo, Rhodes, Rawson, C. Ryan, Steck, Disco, Walzett, Weber, and White. Ayes 37, nays 22.
The bills pass.
Calendar number 765, Senate Print 187A by Senator Horman Siegel, an act to amend the Environmental Conservation Law.
Senator Walzett, why do you rise?
Mr. President, would the sponsor yield?
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
The sponsor yields.
Through you, Mr. President, is your goal to protect human health and the environment from PFAS?
Through you, Mr. President, this bill, which is very similar to one we passed last session, that passed 60-1 with support on both sides of the aisle, would ban PFAS, which is another word for per and polyfluoroalkyl chemicals, which we know cause a variety of adverse health effects, including reproductive problems, cancer, kidney damage, and behavioral and cognitive effects. We know that the World Health Organization has listed PFAS as a carcinogen, as has the NCI, and our own EPA has said that there is no safe amount of PFAS for a human. So the goal is to ban intentionally added PFAS from a variety of consumer products and restrict PFAS that is unintentionally present in these products above the level of detection. Short answer to my colleague's question, yes, to protect human health.
Through you, Mr. President, would the sponsor continue to yield?
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
The sponsor yields.
So, the bill that you're presenting today has provided a number of exceptions for industrial applications, industrial water treatment, industrial manufacturing processes, et cetera. Why not an all-out ban of all PFAS in the state of New York?
Through you, Mr. President. We are certainly taking every step that we think is reasonable at this time, having the information that we know. So I hope my colleague agrees that this is a prudent measure in the sense that for what we are proposing to ban, we have scientific evidence to back it up.
And through you, Mr. President, would the sponsor continue to yield?
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
The sponsor yields.
But there are exceptions in this bill, correct?
Through you, Mr. President, yes.
And through you, Mr. President, would the sponsor continue to yield?
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
The sponsor yields.
Have you had input from producers and users of products that would be affected by the ban in the state of New York?
Through you, Mr. President, yes.
Through you, Mr. President, if the sponsor would continue to yield?
Will the sponsor yield? The sponsor yields.
If PFAS is detectable at very low levels in water and manufacturers use that water in their production processes, how will this bill's second phase ban on PFAS to some level be determined feasible by DEC?
Through you, Mr. President, the idea is similar to what we have instituted in the ban on PFAS for apparel, and I'm assuming also fast food packaging and firefighting foam. The DEC and the Department of Health will regulate after we pass this legislation and make their decision based on information that's tailored to the product that from which we are trying to ban PFAS.
Through you, Mr. President, will the sponsor continue to yield?
Yes.
Will the sponsor yield? The sponsor yields.
If manufacturers are using water in the state of New York in the production of their products, PFAS has been found in water sources everywhere. Will they be expected to remove the PFAS from the water before they produce products here in the state of New York?
Mr. President, what we're trying to do is to upstream this problem and actually focus on the source. And in this case, these are products that contain a contaminant. Look, I don't have to tell my colleagues across the aisle about the travails of the good people in the town of Hoosick Falls, where a water contamination due to a century-old plant that produced a Teflon-like material has resulted in scores of illnesses and other ailments for that local community. I'm very proud that New York State has recently stepped in and instituted a new water treatment facility, but at the cost of millions of dollars and after, over a decade of lawsuits that, still linger. And it's not just Hoosick Falls, it's Newburgh and other towns that have contaminated water supplies. In fact, the EPA recently said that New York State has significantly more dangerous drinking water than any other state in the entire country between 2019 and 2023. More than 50% of residents of our state drank from public water systems that committed health-based violations during that period, according to the EPA. So we're trying to address the problem at the head of the river, not downstream. And we think by removing PFAS, by mandating the removal of PFAS from a variety of consumer products, will incentivize manufacturers, companies, and other corporate actors to take the step now rather than wait for the contamination later.
Through you, Mr. President, will the sponsor continue to yield?
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
Yeah, the question was specifically on manufacturers, whether they'll have to remove PFAS from water if they're using water in the state of New York in the manufacturing process.
Through you, Mr. President, if it's certainly feasible, yes.
Through you, Mr. President, will the sponsor continue to yield?
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
How did you select January 1st, 2027 for an enactment date for this legislation?
Through you, Mr. President, we thought that was a reasonable timeline in order to gain compliance for this law. And mind you, New York has already taken steps. Again, I mentioned firefighting foam and fast food pizza boxes and apparel. And New York's not alone. There are other states, in fact, states like Minnesota, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Maine, Washington, Colorado, Vermont, that have taken similar steps as this bill would propose.
Through you, Mr. President, would the sponsor continue to yield?
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
Solar panels are coated with applications which contain PFAS. Would the coating for solar panels be banned under this new legislation?
President, no, that's a specialty industrial coating which does not fall under our legislation. In fact, it's one of the exceptions.
Through you, Mr. President, would the sponsor continue to yield?
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
The sponsor yields.
What about architectural paint, interior, exterior paint that people use on their homes? Would that be banned under this legislation?
Through you, Mr. President, architectural paint, yes.
And Through you, Mr. President, would the sponsor continue to yield?
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
And when we say architectural paint, by definition, we're talking about, that would be paint that somebody buys off of the shelf at a big box store, uses to paint the outside or the inside of their home. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. President, yes.
And through you, Mr. President, would the sponsor continue to yield?
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
So this legislation, the way that it's written, that essentially bans most of the architectural paint that New Yorkers are currently purchasing in the state of New York, right?
Through you, Mr. President, we think not. We think it's about 8%, as I understand, to be of paint products on the shelves at your local Sherwin-Williams store.
Through you, Mr. President, would the sponsor continue to yield?
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
The sponsor yields.
Yeah, the industry has certainly given me a percentage number much higher than that. I'm not sure where 8% came from, but the industry is pretty concerned about this being an all-out ban for almost all of the paint products for architectural paint that they currently purchase. You did mention Maine and Minnesota, a number of other states that have done similar legislation, which I think there's great merit to a lot of the issue that you're tackling here. Those bans actually haven't included architectural paint. They didn't include paint because they followed good science showing that paint isn't contributing to the health or the environment the way that PFAS is in a number of other applications. Why was paint included in your legislation where it was left out in the other states?
Through you, Mr. President, we think those other states actually, although the ban isn't specifically mentioned in terms of paint, we think based on our understanding of those statutes in different states that they are included in some of those states. And your question, again, I'm so sorry, why? I apologize.
Senator Walczak, please clarify the
Yeah,
question.
through you, Mr. President. My question was, why did you choose to ban architectural paint where other states had not?
We, again, I take issue with the fact that my colleague says that other states have not banned architectural paint that contains PFAS. Our reading of some of those statutes suggests they have, in fact. Secondly, the industrial production of these paints can lead to contamination of water supply.
Through you, Mr. President, would the sponsor continue to yield?
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
The sponsor yields.
Well, one of the exceptions that you're providing in this legislation is specifically the industrial water treatment exception. So that would suggest to me that you're not concerned about PFAS when it comes to those coatings and industrial uses when it comes to water treatment facilities in the state of New York. Am I reading that wrong?
Mr. President, yes, I think you are reading reading into our intentions wrong. We are concerned about paint. I'm not certain what your specific question is.
Through you, Mr. President, if the sponsor would continue to yield.
Will the sponsor yield? Senator Harman, do you yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
Yeah, so on page 2, the first 3 lines here go through the definition of architectural paint, which you define, and we've already talked about interior, exterior, but then goes on to say that architectural paint shall not include industrial original equipment for specialty coatings. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. President, yes. And the reason we are including it, we think there are feasible alternatives, and that's why we included it.
And through you, Mr. President, would the sponsor continue to yield?
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
And underneath that definition, industrial products specifically, so these are under the cleaning product definition, specifically if you look at line 13, that's where you say industrial water treatment. So this, for industrial water treatment, would not be included. That's a carve out for industrial water treatment. Is that correct?
Mr. President, yes.
Through you, Mr. President, would the sponsor continue to yield?
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
The sponsor yields.
So New Yorkers actually buy $870 million worth of paint. Are you concerned about the economic impact or sales tax impact in the state of New York if New Yorkers get a new regulation? Some of the paint, you say 8%, the industry says over half of the paint that's on the shelves right now contains some of the chemical compositions that this legislation would ban. Are you concerned that those residents of the state of New York will be going to New Jersey or Pennsylvania or Canada to purchase their paint? Are you concerned about the economic impact?
Do you, Mr. President? Well, the timeline that my colleague mentioned until 2027 is a, off-ramp for these retail establishments to sell the paint that this bill proposes to and impose the ban on PFAS. But I would just say, generally speaking, I'm more concerned about human health than I am about paint sales.
Through you, Mr. President, will the sponsor continue to yield?
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
The sponsor yields.
On that topic, so PFAS have been used in a number of products in paint and coatings. Fluoropolymers are used for thermal, chemical, photochemical, hydrolytic, oxidative, and biostability principles within paint products. They're considered by the federal government low toxicity, also non-bioavailable. So the human health concern is that those PFAS products and the way that the chemicals are structured within the paint products that the industry is currently producing, non-bioavailable, non-water soluble, and non-mobile would suggest that those don't impact human health as approved to date. That's how I understand it. Is that how you understand it as well?
Through you, Mr. President, no.
And through you, Mr. President, would the sponsor continue to yield?
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes, thank you.
The sponsor yields.
So paints have been built to last and proven not to contaminate water or to danger human health for the reasons that I've just outlined. And that's why I was curious why paint was included. I do agree with a number of the provisions within this, but as I started with the question right at the top, if you're concerned about the environmental impact or the human health impact, I just don't know how that translates into paint products that New Yorkers would currently buy off the shelf. And I wouldn't want to alarm people to think that there is a current product that will remain, even if this legislation passes and is signed into law, a current product that is dangerous to them that will still be sold in the state of New York.
Through you, Mr. President, well, I think there's widespread acknowledgement that products that contain these contaminants are dangerous. I think that we, as a legislative body, need to take steps to remove these products as far as we can, with the exceptions that we've listed. And third, I would say that consumers have to make these decisions for themselves and their families. But we provided a timeline for compliance, but we acknowledge through this bill and through the other bans on fast food packaging, firefighting foam, and apparel that PFAS and PFOS are dangerous to human health, as the World Health Organization and the National Cancer Institute have stated. And so we are trying to be prudent here. Not trying to be alarmist, but trying to be prudent.
Through you, Mr. President, would the sponsor continue to yield?
Will the sponsor yield? Sponsor yields.
So over time, we've changed, and I think with some good cause in the past, paint products in the state of New York. Current law requires paint to be low volatile organic compound in order to meet air quality standards, actually. And new paints have reduced emissions by using fluoropolymer binder structure. Doesn't this take a step backwards if we're putting older technology in paint and increasing emissions that paint products may have in the state of New York?
Specifically about fluoropolymers, such as Teflon. They are a family of high-performance plastics, and the production of them is dangerous, as has been shown recently in a medical journal called The Lancet that connected these type of chemicals to male infertility, among other things.
Through you, Mr. President, will the sponsor continue to yield?
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
So the U.S. Department of Energy has stated the unique characteristics of fluoropolymers can enhance product durability, sustainability, and safety. Products that are lighter, longer lasting will generally have lower life cycle costs, embodied energy, transportation, related emissions, and safety risks. So if we're taking a reduction in quality by going to a more organic paint, say, why reduce the quality in the paint and expect New Yorkers to paint their homes more frequently, the insides of their homes more frequently, to have paint that's more likely to chip, bubble, need to be repainted more frequently? Isn't that a concern?
I just learned, through you, Mr. President, that there's an organization called the American Coating Association, and they apparently have themselves, a trade association group, shown that paint without PFAS and with alternatives are actually as durable and have very similar qualities as the ones with fluoropolymers. So I don't think we're sending any consumers into the desert when it comes to painting their homes.
Thank you, Mr. President. On the bill.
Senator Walczyk on the bill.
Elimination of PFAS in many different applications, I think, to the sponsor's greater point here, is important, and we've made a lot of headway. This bill does do some good in phasing out PFAS in certain products that could endanger the health of New Yorkers as well as our environment. However, this bill is really ignoring some good science, especially when we're talking about polymers, paints, coatings that have proven not to be a danger to human health or to the environment, and I think could actually have the reverse effect, especially when we're talking about the environment. This may set New York back on emissions standards, will obviously frustrate consumers come January 1, 2027, as was pointed out, and I think ignores some good science. I think in the marketplace of ideas, looking at the other states that have had PFAS bans, and even our neighbor to the north, Canada, there's a reason why, they had looked at paints, but they also looked at the science and decided, all right, these chemical compounds actually aren't a bio danger, they're non-water soluble, they're not going to be a problem like some other PFAS are, and it's because of these provisions that I'll be voting no. Thank you, Mr. President.
Are there any other senators wishing to be heard? Senator Oberacker, to explain, or are you asking the sponsor to you? So we're going to go through and just want to make sure. Seeing and hearing none, debate is closed. Secretary, ring the bell. Read the last section. Senator Serrano.
Mr. President, upon consent, we've agreed to restore this bill to the non-controversial
The
calendar.
bill will be restored to the non-controversial calendar. Read the last section.
Section 5, this action take effect January 1st, 2027.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Junaris Kuka, Ortsu, Cousins White.
Senator Oberacker to explain his vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. Right now, I'm having amnesia and deja vu at the same time. I think I have forgotten this before. I was the lone vote no the last time this bill came to the floor, and I voted no more so on the issue that chemicals lately, since I've been here in the Senate, Mr. President, five years, chemicals here are starting to take on this ominous figure, this ominous position that all chemicals are bad, and they're not. I do think there is some areas that this bill address that do make sense. But I would propose to you, Mr. President, that the carve-out that we've seen and that my colleague brought up about the solar panels, the scientist in me would say, if we had a 40 or 50 acre solar array with these panels that are treated, that are being, I would say, attacked by ultraviolet rays that tend to break down chemicals. And then we have these rains that we've seen, these microburst storms that are seen, that would bring the rainwater in and so on. So where are all these chemicals that leach off of this? Where are they going? Are they more detrimental to the health and welfare of our New Yorkers? Because I can tell you unequivocally, Mr. President, that if we were to sample that, I believe that we would see that the chemicals that we're talking about would definitely be at levels of concern. So I find it interesting that we're worried about it in clothing. You know, Mr. President, as an outdoorsman who loves to go out in the outdoors, but when it's raining, I love to have the rain shed off of my Gore-Tex suit. So with that in mind, Mr. President, I will be voting no, and I would hope that we would allow our companies to have a little bit more time to institute these changes as we move forward in regards to chemicals. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Oberrocker to be recorded in the negative. Senator Krueger to explain her vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. I enjoyed the debate. It's one of the things I love about being a senator. You get to listen to all these debates from intelligent people, and you get to read some research while they're doing it. So I think it was fascinating that the discussion seemed to focus on paint, because it turns out there's a really good reason not to let PFAS, forever chemicals, in paint. And you know why we know this? Ever hear about lead in paint and the problems that we're now living with decades later as children eat the crumbling paint off the walls and develop brain damage, as that paint just sort of turns into dust that is inhaled by people living in homes with lead-based paint? The odor when you paint something has the chemicals in it. We all know what an apartment or a house smells like when you're painting it. Those exact problems and the research that we know from decades on lead is exactly why PFAS in paint should be a priority for this legislature to say, let's stop, guys. And I heard the concerns about how much paint has PFAS in it, and to be honest, I don't know that either side knew. But I did do research, and pretty much every major paint corporation that we're familiar with the names and we are buying paint from now offer non-PFAS paint as well as PFAS paint. So I don't actually think New Yorkers will have to leave the state to buy paint. I don't even think they'll have to leave their local store where they're buying paint now. They just should ask for no PFAS in my paint, please, or by January 27, I guess, not be able to buy PFAS paint. But every major brand I could look up has options. So I think the bill is overall the right thing to do. I think clearly getting PFAS out of paint that we're using in our homes is a critical thing to do. And with all due respect, maybe we should also outlaw it on solar panels. I don't know. I think it's worth doing more research. Of course, solar panels are on the outside of our homes, not on the inside of our homes, so less likely the baby's going to be peeling the solar panel and nibbling on it than on the wall. But maybe we should do more research and find alternatives for solar panels as well. I very happily vote yes, Mr. President. Thank you.
Senator Krueger to be recorded in the affirmative. Senator Walczyk to explain his vote.
Mr. President, the Federal Trade Commission allows labeling of products with fluoropolymer binders to be labeled PFAS-free, which is why a quick Google search allowed you to see that there are a number of paint products out there that are labeled PFAS-free. However, the binders that are banned in this legislation would allow even those PFAS-free labeled products would come off the shelves for New Yorkers. I continually vote no. Thank you.
Senator Walczak, to be recorded in the negative, announce the results.
In relation to calendar 765, voted in the negative are Senators Chan, Griffo, Helming, Lanza, Oberacker, O'Mara, Ort, Rhodes, Steck, Tedisco, Walczak, and White. Ayes 47, nays 12.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 988, Senate Print 3036 by Senator Holman Siegel, enactment of the Civil Practice Law and Rules.
Senator Palumbo, why do you rise?
Mr. President, will the sponsor yield for a few questions, please?
Will the sponsor yield? Sponsor yields.
Thank you, Senator. And through you, Mr. President, just a few questions regarding what this bill does, and there are really two aspects to it. And the title indicates that it makes some changes to the Civil Practice Law and Rules regarding making technical corrections to ensure gender neutrality for the admission of practice law. And when I look at this, Chairman, I just have just to clarify that it essentially just takes the chairman language, changing it to chairperson, the references to his, it changes to they, their, and the applicant. So it's gender neutrality with respect to the language in that particular bill. Is that accurate?
Mr. President, yes.
Thank you. Will the sponsor continue to yield?
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
Yes, and thank you for that clarification. So the other mechanics of the bill don't have anything to do with gender neutrality, so to speak. It has to do with the application for admission to the bar. And specifically, the meat of it is a few lines. It says the questionnaire shall not include any questions requiring the disclosure of the applicant's history of interaction with law enforcement or the criminal justice system if such interaction is no longer pending and did not result in a conviction. 2, resulted in a juvenile proceeding or youthful offender adjudication, or 3, resulted in a conviction which is now sealed, and I'm assuming that's at the time of the admission of the application. So through you, Mr. President, my question is, that would also include, of course, let me rephrase that, that would actually be more expansive than the current application process, which requires you to offer any interaction with law enforcement. Is that also accurate?
Through you, Mr. President, yes.
Sponsor, continue to yield.
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
Thank you. And I see here the language at question or at issue is that they ask you, and for the non-lawyers here, if I could just go on the bill just for 1 second. After
Senator, hold on. Senator Palumbo on the bill.
Thank you. After you graduate a law school and after you pass the bar examination, you then have a character and fitness interview, which is essentially, we used to call it the ethics interview, where you are also interviewed by an admitted lawyer, usually someone who is a member of the Bar Association, who would then determine your, quote, character and fitness. And one of those questions on that application is, have you ever, either as an adult or a juvenile, been cited, ticketed, arrested, taken into custody, charged with, indicted, convicted, or tried for, or pleaded guilty to the commission of any felony or misdemeanor or the violation of any law, or been the subject of any juvenile delinquency or youthful offender proceeding? Traffic violations that occurred more than 10 years before the filing of this application need not be reported, except alcohol or drug-related traffic violations, which must be reported in all cases, irrespective of when they occurred. Do not report parking violations. That's the language at issue that would now be stricken as a result of this legislation. So will the sponsor continue to yield, Mr. President?
Yes.
Senator Holman, do you yield? Senator Holman Siegel yields.
Thank you. And Senator, with regard to that, any conviction or any sealed conviction, I'll really just address the third part because I don't have too much issue with the first two, juvenile adjudications or cases that did not result in any sort of action by the criminal justice system, an acquittal or something. Regarding that, so if someone, for example, under New York law was convicted of a grand larceny 8 or 9 years earlier, and through clean slate, that particular conviction is now sealed, would they not have to disclose that in light of this new legislation if they were applying for admission to the bar?
Through you, Mr. President, yes, our colleague is correct. And we are following the recommendations of both the New York State Bar and the City Bar. We think that this bill brings the civil practice law and rules, specifically in connection with admission to practice law, in line with the New York State human rights law and the law that we proudly passed in the last 5 years called Clean Slate. So this is parallel to those reforms and reports that have supported that effort.
Thank you. Will the sponsor continue to yield?
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
Thank you. And currently admitted lawyers, like I believe the two of us are, if we're convicted of a felony, we lose our license automatically. Isn't that accurate? And you can't even reapply for admission for at least 7 years. That's the current state of the law for a conviction while admitted to practice. Is that accurate?
President.
Thank you. On the bill, please. Thank you for your comments, Chairman.
Senator Palumbo on the bill.
So, Mr. President, this is a bridge way too far. When you think about character and fitness for admission to the bar, that doesn't necessarily prohibit you from being admitted, but it's important. If you're convicted, if you are a serial thief, you steal for years and years from your employer, from the elderly, you commit mortgage fraud, that's important when it comes to character and fitness as a lawyer. Why do you ask? People don't like lawyers, right? They think we're all a little bit slippery at some point just because that's the perception. But lawyers have one of the most important responsibilities in society when it comes to overseeing, not only representing people, but overseeing other people's money. When I was in a busy practice, we had millions of dollars on any given day in our escrow accounts of other people's money that was not ours, that we were supposed to watch. And if you see, being a member on the Judiciary Committee, being a ranking member in both houses, I get a lot of information regarding lawyers being admonished, being censored, suspended, and being disbarred. You have them getting, if you're convicted of a felony, you're gone. Your license is gone. You can try again in 7 years and make your application, which usually takes much longer than that, to get readmitted to the bar. But more importantly, in the event you you have misdemeanors, or there are other suspensions and so forth, and other aspects of the ethics code or disciplinary proceedings when you're convicted of a crime. But if you touch your escrow on almost every occasion, I've represented lawyers, DWIs, other different the charges of felony, you get it reduced, they keep their license. You mess with escrow, you're gone. They punch your ticket, you lose it, and they should, because that is a very, very important thing that is very unique to the practice of law. So if you do not have this sort of screening, and as I said, the first two, you've rehabilitated yourself. This is the wrinkle, and this is the problem I had with and not to get too far afield, this was the problem with Clean Slate. You don't need to be proven that you're rehabilitated. You don't need to make an application like the law was just before we enacted Clean Slate. You would have to go back to court and say, look, mea culpa, look at me now. I'm a productive member of society. Please seal this conviction. It's automatic. And that's the concern. You can have bad people who should have no business practicing law and being entrusted with other people's money and their lives because of this legislation. I get it, it's well-intended, but this is actually dangerous to our members of society, and as a result, I'll be voting no, and I encourage my colleagues to do the same.
Thank you, Senator Palumbo. Are there any other senators wishing to be heard? Seeing and hearing none, debate is closed. Senator Serrano.
Mr. President, upon consent, we've agreed to restore this bill to the non-controversial calendar.
Upon consent, this bill is restored to the non-controversial calendar. Read the last section.
Section 6 is actually take effect on the 60th day. It shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Sukens White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 988, voting in the negative are Senators Ashby, Borrello, Kenzari Fitzpatrick, Chan, Gallivan, Griffo, Hellman, Lanza, Martinez, Matera. Murray, Oberacker, O'Mara, Ort, Palumbo, Rhodes, Ralston, C. Ryan, Skoufis, Steck, Tedisco, Walzett, Weber, and White. Ayes 35, nays 24.
The bill is passed. Senator Serrano, that completes the reading of today's controversial calendar.
Thank you. Is there any further business at the desk?
There is no further business at the desk.
I move to adjourn until tomorrow, Thursday, May 22nd at 11 a.m.
On motion, the Senate stands adjourned until Thursday, May 22nd at 11 a.m. In New York, you know what time it is. Go New York, go New York, go.